great to have you on the program as always. What is your plan here? Will you move if WA does wait to 90%?
Yeah, that's a good question. Basically, we're looking at the Constitution, the constitutional challenge that it's quite different to what Palmer did, the Palmer challenge last year. We're looking at a judicial review in the federal court, basically showing or trying to show to the federal court that the border directions are unreasonable. And that's we're talking. We had a conference with our legal advisors last week on Friday, and we're following through this week, and we'll decide by the end of the week whether we'll pursue this judicial review, which will use the Section 92 as part of our argument, I guess, that this direction by the West Australian government could be unreasonable. And that's the basic story.
Graham, how big a concern is it, though, particularly when you've got some of the biggest, most populous markets opening up not just to each other, but to international markets as well already, Graham?
Well, I mean, that's obviously part of the question. And you know, WA and Queensland are a little bit similar. They don't have any COVID in their system. It's not endemic like it is in New South Wales and Victoria. So clearly the governments are wary about opening up, but they do have to open up sometime. And I think, as the PM said, the longer they leave it, the more economic damage is going to be done. But it's not only economic damage and to travel, tourism, hospitality, airlines, airports and other people, but it's also, you know, relatives not being able to get together. Particularly, there's a high level of overseas residents in WA where the relatives are overseas. So there's a whole range of reasons why we believe that WA is being backward in opening up their borders, and that's what we'll be challenging.
You quoted the PM, and he also quoted the Doherty modelling, which said, in fact, and also Treasury Secretary Kennedy pointing in the same direction, that once you get beyond 80%, you close the borders, it actually has starts to have a negative impact the other way. That being said, you wouldn't anticipate the federal government would buy into any legal challenge, certainly not so close to the election, and given their experience with that initial Palmer challenge.
Yeah, look, I think it's not a politically good thing to be doing, because I know from Flight Centre's point of view, you know, we'll make some enemies there. There's quite a few West Australians who like being shut off from the rest of the world, but we also have a lot of support there. You know, the people who do travel, who do have relatives overseas and interstate. So we, you know, it's a risk for us, and there'll certainly be some people who don't like what we're doing. But we think probably they're people without passports and who don't travel and who don't have relatives overseas. So, you know, but in the end, Australia's a constitutional democracy. We have a constitution, and it's in our interests, I think, for that to be challenged if there's a question about it.
And also, you know, further to the legality, it's also a nation of travellers as well, as you well know, as you built your business on it.
For sure. And, you know, it'll never be, once COVID becomes endemic, as it will in West Australia over the next few months, it's going to be here, it's going to be with us forever. And people, particularly people who aren't vaccinated, are going to suffer from it. But that's the same as other diseases. We're never going to be disease-free. And at some stage, the decisions has to be made. And the real question with WA is whether it's reasonable or unreasonable what their border directions are, as they've stated at the moment. And that's what we'll be deciding, you know, this week, and deciding the next action, which obviously is going to be quite in the next few days.
Graham Turner, Flight Centre CEO and founder, appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, sir.